All right, we're back. Another week. Rush Hour Pod. I love it. I'm T Dubs, Justin. I- big week, kind of, I guess. I
Kind
mean,
of.
Apple's WWDC, the developer conference news. That I feel like it was one of their bigger ones. Everyone's talking about it. I figured we'd dive into that. There's also some Roaring Kitty updates. GME. I've been doing some digging. I think you have too. We could probably share that. Where do you want to start? And
Yeah,
we have our
why don't
giveaway. We have an actual
and we
giveaway.
finally we're finally doing
Yeah,
the giveaway.
we
We
have an
didn't
actual
lie about
giveaway.
that.
I
So
love it.
why don't we start with Apple just because that's kind of the flavor of the day. And what I
Yes,
thought is
let's
maybe
do
I
it.
could go into a few of the announcements that were made that I thought were particularly interesting. Maybe you have some others and we could talk about that and then
Yeah, let's do
go
it.
from there. Cool.
Yeah.
So, WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference, that's kind of Apple's seminal conference that they do every year where they launch new products and it gets a lot of hype. Back in the day, you think about the launch of the iPhone and the iPod and iPad, all those big launches are in and around, I believe, in and around WWDC. So leading up to this moment, a lot of hype in terms of what Apple is going to introduce, and I think they also dropped a few kind of nuggets on some of the things around kind of AI and their partnership with OpenAI and all that. But I thought I'd just go through some quick updates of enhancements, and then maybe we could talk about that and what it means for the company and the stock and
Yeah, let's do it.
just everything else. Yeah. So first was the introduction of Apple Intelligence. And so Apple basically launched this new AI system, which enhances its native apps with generative models and then also emphasizes security on device, which does either on device processing or allows for private cloud use. You have a bunch of Siri enhancements, and this was kind of the partnership and everything that you've been hearing kind of the Twitter sphere and otherwise about their partnership with ChatGPT, which basically kind of improves the understanding of Siri to handle more complex queries, which is pretty cool. If you've seen, some of the demos around that, AI features really just across all the apps. So functionalities within mail and photos, messages. If you haven't seen the videos of the demos around these things, it's very comprehensive in terms of what Apple is pulling in to iOS 18. It also includes new customization and messaging features, and also new app and device enhancements. So managing login details. They have a new calculator app on iPad, which is kind of cool with the pencil support. If you've seen some of those videos of people using that functionality, and also iPhone mirroring. So the big takeaway was, hey, they may have been late to the AI game, but it's now fully encompassed in this new in iOS 18. And I think one important note before maybe we jump in, T Dubs, is like, a lot within the space that we're in within tech and Silicon Valley. This is kind of stuff that we talk about all the time, and we're using these tools probably more so than the average consumer. But
Right.
what AI hasn't done yet is really reach average consumer. So there's some data I was able to pull from an article that maybe we'll put in the speaker, in the notes. But for all of ChatGPT's hype, only 23% of Americans have ever used it. And even
Yep.
among the most tech obsessed kind of youths, AI isn't part of daily life. It's only 4% of Americans aged 14 to 22 who report using AI tools daily or every day. And the last thing is, it's not just an American thing. Like, only 2% of Brits report using AI daily. So we're still at the very early
Yes.
phase of AI.
Yes.
But this device, this iPhone, like, is ubiquitous device, and now it's going to have AI entrenched. So more people are going to be able to experience the benefits, and that should be. I think that's very bullish for the stock. I think that's very bullish for just kind of um, the AI bull case around the space. But curious what you
Right.
think, if based on what you saw, because I know you watched it.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing yesterday. I thought it was interesting that they kind of left the AI stuff and they call it Apple Intelligence to the end, because everyone else was leading with AI, all the AI stuff, and that's all the rage. They kind of packed all of it in towards the end, and they took a little shot at NVIDIA there, where they said, "Hey, we're doing all of this on your device. We're not throwing it in the cloud and making things vulnerable for theft, security, et cetera," which I thought was really smart. They kind of focused on doing a lot of the computing on the Apple devices themselves, and then only going out to the cloud when needed. I thought that was really smart way to sort of like package it in a way where more people could use it and not feel like, oh my god, that Apple's gonna have all of my information out there with ChatGPT. And I know, I don't know if you saw it. Elon immediately said,
Yeah.
if Chat GPT is integrated into the iPhone, then I'm not allowing these in my any of my companies. That
Yep.
people are going to need to check them in at the door. There's no, he's definitely concerned about the security of these, which as a company it makes sense if you're talking sensitive information and all of this stuff is
Do
going to the
you
cloud.
Can we talk about
It's a little
that for a
scary.
minute? Do you think he's
Yeah,
just kind of mad about how all this has played out with him being kind of like an initial founder and then now he's
hundred
not part of
percent.
the conversation? Okay.
100%. I mean, that's definitely what it is, right? He wanted to take a jab at it, like that. Hey, look, I don't trust these people, quote unquote. I think that
Hmm.
was his method of saying that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely when he said that, it made me think of um Batman. It Begins, I think it was, or was it Dark Knight? Where they had to like check in their phone at the front desk and then go talk to the bankers up top.
Oh
Anyway, I
yeah.
don't know why I thought of that. But anyway, but no, I thought that was really cool. Like that they launched all that, and you're right. We've talked about it. Who really uses AI? Who really uses ChatGPT every day and integrate it into life? Not many people. Like my parents and family and friends that are like in regular everyday jobs, not in tech. I mean, they're kind of using it, but not really. It's not truly integrated. And I've heard rumors that actual retention of ChatGPT is quite low. Like lots of
Mm,
people tried it, very few came back. People haven't really found ways to integrate it into their daily lives. It's more of like, hey, I got to sit down and use ChatGPT.
yeah.
And I think this the way they packaged it here makes it seem like, hey, it's easier, it's easily integrated into your products and things. You don't even notice that they're there. If we need ChatGPT, Siri will prompt you and say, hey, do you want to go get an answer from ChatGPT? I thought that was a really cool, somewhat seamless way of integrating OpenAI into Apple products, kind of like the way Google search kind of just happens on your phone. If you just, I just use my browser. I type anything, it automatically default searches to Google there's
Yep.
nothing readily available. And it seems like that's the route Apple and is going. And then they made Vision Pro updates, which I don't know how many people that actually applies to. I did like the iPad and the
Yeah.
pencil updates where you write notes, it like transforms it into your handwriting. Also very scary because that is purely AI. It understands your handwriting and can translate things into your handwriting, and then it can do math and solve equations and reference things in all of your notes. Really cool. And then I thought it was overall really good. It's one of the better ones I've seen. I know they have the product launch like like iPhone and iPad, and this is a little more like software launches, and I thought it was
Hmm.
good. Like there was some really cool sort of displays. They don't have like pure launch dates and things like that. Like, hey, when is all this stuff coming out? But it kind of gives you a look into like what's going to be coming. Um, my question for you is like
Yeah.
all the work that Apple's done over the years is very much, I'm going to keep you inside my Apple bubble and close it off. And then now when it's advantageous for them, they open it up, like with the Google search and now with OpenAI. But like their products are very much do you think that
Totally.
helps or hurts them in the long run? Because like I now that we've talked about it, I've tried the Pixel. It's a better product now.
Yeah.
And then they've done, they're adding AI. They're doing these things. Some of the Google watches are just frankly better. do you think this in the long term helps or hurts them?
I think it's a great question. I think that historically it's helped them because they just had I think historically they've had much better products that have been more elegant in terms of how you can interoperate like between all the systems and the usage and the UI, etc. But now that Android is caught up like a fair amount, if not in some cases having more functionality. There was like a meme on, about your ability to kind of put apps wherever you want on the screen. And it's like
Right.
Android users have had this,
Yeah.
since '09 or something like that. Right. And so I think that some of the luster is, some of the luster is kind of coming off of Apple products. And to that extent, I think that they need to kind of go outside of the walled
Yeah.
garden to just get access to kind of the best
Yes.
software and services and content, but, you know, what does that do though? I think that impacts their kind of long-term strategy around this kind of walled garden, and that people maybe start using other products. And then, one of the benefits of using Apple is like all my Apple stuff kind of just works seamlessly together. Well, what happens when you're using all these different, um, products and services and tools? So uh, I think it gets kind of tricky longer term,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I feel like it's great in the medium term where you're like, hey, I'm going to get the iPad hardware wise. If I'm going to look for a new pair of headphones, I'm going to look for the AirPods because I have an iPhone. Um, but like long term, it's a little scary, right? If you're like, hey, I'm switching off. I like the way the Pixel now is, and now you've got RCS. I can do texting a little better. I'm going to switch, and then it
Mm-hmm.
takes you away from iPods and it takes you away from Apple Watches, and like I don't know, long term, it seems like it could really bite them,
Yeah.
because like now, yeah, the products. It limits you if your iPhone isn't the killer product that it always is. That seems to be the gateway to all the other
Yeah.
products, the supplementary products. And if you bail on the iPhone, you basically miss out on all the other products, right? Because then you don't need, like, the need for all the things seems less important, right? Maybe iPad is still a killer, but I don't know. Like it seems
Yeah.
like long term, I'm wondering like how big of a foothold they have on this thing. But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
You've been someone who's, I feel like, has done a really good job at thinking about products within the context of like, culture and trends as well. And I think that, Apple famously had that whole kind of, Mac versus PC campaign. And that was kind of the
Yep.
impetus that kind of created a cultural divide between, hey, all the cool kids are on, Apple products. And if you're not cool or you don't have money or you're not with it, then you're an Android. And I think that gap has started to close more and more. But it was
Yeah.
able, Apple was able to kind of maintain their trajectory because they did also have better products as well, perceived as cooler and a better product. Now it's maybe still perceived as cooler, but not necessarily a better product. So
Yeah.
I think the marketing, becomes even that much more important relative to the gap between the two products. And the real question is, can they maintain um, that same like kind of luster around the brand when, they're not releasing a lot of new kind of hardware that's really kind of changing the game on a regular
Yeah.
cadence. And that's not to say that the Vision Pro isn't incredible, which I think it is in a lot of ways, but it's not like a mass adopted device. So what does that do to kind of brand perception and the margins, like acquiring more users because you get that word of mouth growth from your friends.
Yeah. It seems like the blue bubble, green bubble divide that was had maybe 5, 10 years ago is going to be for old people at some point, right? It's going to be like, oh, those are the old
Maybe.
people that care about the blue bubble. I
Yeah.
don't know. It just seems like that's something, like if you're coming up and when I ask my kids, I asked them the other day, what would you rather have? Because we have both now in the house for your first phone, the Pixel or the iPhone. And they said they want the Pixel because of the camera. The camera's better because I let them use the camera, and they like the editing and sort of the Google AI and a lot of the stuff. But then when they're like, "Oh, I can't FaceTime you," then maybe I do want the Apple.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's
Yeah.
still a debate. But the very
Yeah.
young are still like their instant reaction is, "I want the Pixel, I want the Google, I want the stuff that they are providing," which I think that was not the case of just
No.
a few years ago. Like every
Totally.
kid is Apple. Like, why would you ever want a Google? Are you poor? Like now it's more like, I kind of, I only want the iPhone because I can talk to mommy and grandma with it. That's a crazy thought. Like,
Yeah.
that the Apple is going to shift to like, hey, it's what old people use. So if you want to talk to old people, get an iPhone. Like that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought that would be the case, but we're getting
Hey,
there.
I know. And it's really interesting when you think about your kids, like they're Gen Alpha, right?
Yeah,
So their perception of technology and trends and kind of how those things meld together is different than Gen Z in a way that at least me as a millennial, I've always been like, okay, well, what's kind of Gen Z into? Now you have to start thinking of even the generation behind them in terms of
yeah,
trends and adoption, which I think is pretty fascinating. And you have a front row seat to
yeah.
that
To
change
watching
for
how
sure.
this thing plays out. But
Yeah.
back to the Apple stuff. I mean, there's some cool features that are coming. I even love the AirPods now. Like if you're in an area where you can't take a call, you can shake your head or you can nod your head if you want to accept or decline a call. I like little. There's relatively small updates,
Hmm.
but they're like small, convenient type of things. I know Google has a lot of them, but they do a great job like packaging those and demonstrating them in real life in those demos that make it like you know interesting and kind of fun.
Sure.
And a reminder of the power of Apple and all of the things and Apple TV as well. Like I don't. Do you do Apple TV Plus? Do you do that?
I don't. I have an Apple TV, but I don't do Plus.
Yeah, I don't do Plus either. They said it was the number one thing for 2 or 3 years running. I've never
Oh,
used it.
really?
Maybe it's yeah. They said it was the top content in the last 2 or 3 years, which I thought was interesting. I didn't even know that.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, maybe it's something
Wow.
worth tuning in. But overall, that I feel like this was a big update for Apple. Like the stock. What do you think this means for their stock and long term look?
Well, I think that if they can be a lead, I mean, just based off their footprint, they're going to be a leader in AI now. I think what
Yeah,
it showed is, hey, we're here. We understand that there was a perception that we weren't doing anything in this space, and we are, and now we're caught up. So you saw a bit of a bump there because they just have such a tremendous foothold in these markets that are very profitable for them. And obviously, there have been challenges with China and like China like more consumers there getting non-Apple devices and all the issues that were there. But I think what this signals is in terms of the AI race, they're they're a player. To kind of go
yeah,
back to my other point around like the hardware piece versus focusing on software, you know, I'm not really sure kind of where the innovation is going to come from now in terms of the hardware piece, but they have a huge pile of cash, right? I was just
yes,
looking up, how much cash they had on hand. So as of December 2023, it was like $73 billion. I'm not sure, what it is now, but I imagine it's at or around that. Do they get acquisitive? Can they within this regulatory environment? I think that's really interesting to think about as
right.
well. And I don't know if you have any kind of targets in mind who they might want to acquire, but that might be interesting to talk about as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. I mean, they've got serious dollars and they've got an incredible brand and like we talked about that closed wall and to get into that wall I imagine for any company is a huge thing. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I you know since it's crazy thought but since Steve Jobs passed I've always assumed that we're going to see a decline in Apple
Yeah.
over the long term in terms of innovation and just nobody cares as much as the founder, um, the originator, and I feel like we're kind of seeing it, but not really. It seems like we're at a place right now where Apple, where are they going? Are they going to continue to be the top and top dog? Are they going to continue to innovate, um, or are they going to start now integrating OpenAI and ChatGPT and all these things from third parties into their products, which is Like we're at an inflection point for everything,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to see how Google and Apple and OpenAI and all these companies are sort of reacting to this new world that we're in. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, this it's going to be fun. I mean, we're still
Yeah.
years away. Let's keep it real. Like I mean, not decades, but like 3 to 5 years away from like I think what we're talking about, which is like the average person really like integrating AI
Yeah.
into their daily lives. I don't even know if phone. It seems like phone is the right form factor, but I don't. I'm not even convinced that
I
that's the.
I think maybe it is just because it is just like an incredible device. It's probably the most incredible device
It
easier
is
like ever in terms of just how intuitive it is to use, how useful it is,
right.
access to knowledge and connection with people and social. It's kind of all there, and everything else that you could use to interact with that is either kind of like on a V1 or so clunky, or in the case of
Yeah.
Humane, kind of RIP there, just not useful. That it's like I don't know, another form factor kind of leapfrogging that for some period of time. But yeah, man, it remains.
I mean,
Things get. I mean, yeah,
the ones that I've been thinking about are like if it's if everything's gonna live in the cloud and you're gonna need to interact with it. I mean, then you don't need a ton of computing power. So the combination
hmm
of like glasses with the voice in your ear where you can talk and somewhat interact and it can like receive and it can do some things to
yeah,
give if you need a screen it'll pop up on your glasses. If you need some sort of voice or prompt it'll do it in your ear and you don't need a device outside. That seems like it has some potential. I'm not sure if we're anywhere
yeah,
close to that, but like I could see phone not being the one because it is incredibly invasive when you're in a room and everybody's on their phones and like you need it all the time. It just seems like there's going to be something that makes us like like we've talked about it like how do you be a real person and not a bot, like definitely not looking at your phone all day long, so maybe like take that
no,
screen away and what do you
I
got?
I think that's true, but I think that the devil's advocate point is if you have glasses on all the time where people could potentially be engaging with content, it's almost kind of
It's
worse because
just as bad.
it's like when
Yeah.
you have your phone out, you at least know that that person isn't like engaging with you. Whereas if you have some type of device like on your face, like you don't really know what the person is doing. You don't know if they're kind of like checked in or
Yeah,
out. So I'm not sure which is necessarily. I'm not sure which is necessarily better. I just think it's going to be hard to replace the phone. The
maybe.
other thing that I would say is I feel like younger generations are trying to spend less time on devices. They're trying to spend less time on
Yes.
devices. They're trying to spend less time on social media. They're trying to do more experiential type of activities. And I think a lot of that's coming out of this pandemic period where people
Yep.
just know what it's like to be locked down and not be able to leave.
Yeah.
Being in front of a screen. So I think we may have talked about this in prior episodes, but I think that tension is going to be really interesting as well in terms of how fast technology is iterating versus kind of pushback from humanity on, okay, this is going too fast, and are we kind of losing what makes us human in some ways.
Yeah.
And the younger generations, because they've really truly grown up with technology being kind of the canary in the coal mine on that thinking.
Yeah. That's going to be really interesting to see how this kind of evolves over the next couple of years, right? Because yeah, we've talked about it. Like we're getting to the point where all the form factor is in terms of phones and computers, they're really hitting peak power here. At least what it seems like. The iterations are getting more marginal. Um, so we'll see. I'm curious as to where this thing goes. It kind of makes me nervous the more I think about it, but like it's just part of life. Like everyone was nervous about the TV when that became color and all
Mm-hmm.
those things. So we'll, I definitely feel like something is going to come that's going to disrupt a little bit, whether or not it's on the phone or if it's part of the phone or some integration of it. This is to be seen, but
Yeah. Well, when you spot it, put me on, man, so I can
yeah, let's do it.
get
I'm
my
all about
ducks in a row.
being on that bleeding edge, figuring out what's the next thing. So it's going to be fun.
Totally.
playing with all kinds of crazy devices.
Yeah. You want to talk a little GameStop?
Let's do it.
Give a download update.
Yeah, so I don't know. I since we last talked, right? We had Roaring Kitty schedule the live stream, which was the first one he had done in a long time. And when he made the announcement, this it was a Thursday. He said, "I'm going live tomorrow." He scheduled his thing, his scheduled his live stream. The stock jumped 40-50%. After hours, another 40%. This was on a Thursday. Live stream was scheduled for 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern on Friday. And a crazy thing happened Friday morning, which was that GameStop pre-announced earnings, which were fairly negative. They weren't great. They were kind of like, nothing to earth shattering there. But in that earnings, they said they were also going to raise more capital through a share offering of 75 million additional shares.
Mm-hmm.
So they filed those two things in the early hours, and the stock absolutely tanked in the morning in pre-market. It went from,
Yeah.
I think it was at 67, which actually put Roaring Kitty at $1 billion, back down to like 40 and then 30, and then it kind of hovered around that point when Roaring Kitty went live. And he came on, and he was 20 minutes late. I think it's his normal thing. And there was like 600,000 people on, a massive
Mm.
number. And he didn't really have a plan. He just kind of wanted to make sure everybody knew that this was him. This was real. He's not getting any help. And then while it was live, like the stock got halted a number of times. It kind of hovered around that $30 mark, and it kind of went up and down during his stream based on what he was saying. But it was relatively uneventful. If you're expecting like some crazy thing, he's kind of like, I like the stock. It's a feeling I have, no details. Um, and that was it. And the stock has kind of tanked since. Like Friday, it was down 40, and then Monday it was down 40. Yesterday down again. Today down relatively flat to down a couple percent. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we are. What are your thoughts?
Man, don't if you are trading, this is not financial advice, but don't invest any more than you're willing to lose. I think that's kind of
Yep.
where kind of
Yeah.
my initial reaction. I think that this is when we talked about this previously. I think it's not even necessarily the start because this has been going around a while. People are trading these meme stocks, but I think this is not a trend that is going to end. I think this is the only
Yep.
kind of arb or asymmetric kind of trades that regular folks can kind of do off of just kind of culture and momentum
Yep.
that clearly have not been so kind of picked up by other algorithms that the high frequency traders can quite figure out how to do that piece. And I think that's the only thing that exists within the space.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you are trading, I think it's very interesting. For me personally, it's almost too risky, but I think it's a fascinating story, and I love I love the Robin Hood stories, right? Like who doesn't? So from that perspective, obviously I'm not following it as deeply as you, but I think it's very interesting, and I don't think it's a trend. I don't think it's kind of like a one-off trend. I think this is something that's long lasting, which it's proven to be in terms of like impact of, meme stock, activity.
Yeah, it's pop culture. It's retail versus Wall Street. It's all of those things, but like now there's way more information this time around than 2021. Um, and now the company's in on it. They raised a bunch of money from this, right? The
Mm-hmm.
stock went to two all highs, and the company itself cashed in. They're going to have $2-4 billion depending on where they actually sold out. So they're going to have they're going to be a decent company. It's not like a failing company. They have lots of cash,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a leader in this space who sold Chewy and Ryan Cohen, and I've watched a bunch of his interviews, and I can't say it's super clear what his plan is, but like the guy's turned around a couple of companies. He's had some exits. He's a real person that wants to turn this thing around. So it's interesting. Like now it's like you throw that in there. I mean, obviously there's no valuation that's going to make sense from like a EBITDA earnings per share ratio. Like I'll throw all that out the window. This thing is kind of a potential um, meets shorts versus rationale. Like all of these things are going to be balancing over the course of, weeks and months. And like you said, it's not going away. I think people are going to all jump on one stock and then get that stock out of whack. And then people are going to short it, that are rational and logical and thinking about the sort of stock market as it should be, and they're going to short it because they're like, there's no way this stock should be worth this. And those people with lots of money are going to short it. And then everyone else is going to disregard it and buy it and squeeze it. And it's going to go up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, do you want to be a part of that ride or not? This is not, like you said, this is not an investment. This is just gambling. Like
Yeah, no,
it's
this is
literally gambling.
truly gambling. But I
It
like what
is
you
just
always
gambling.
say. I like what you've said in most episodes. We've kind of gotten to this topic, which is put a little money in, enough that's going to keep you,
Yeah. Interested.
interested in knowing what happens, and and not staying up at night if you end up losing it, and be a
Right.
part of the conversation. Just follow what's going along, because I think that, and I imagine you co-sign this, that like you're learning a lot even in this process of how these trades, like what happens within
Yeah.
the content, like news cycle and culture, et cetera. And I think that's all, valuable information, as more of these events take place.
Yeah, that's we always talk about it. If you want to learn about this stuff, put your money where your mouth is. Put a couple $100, 1,000 bucks, whatever you're willing to lose. Put it in there, and it'll be interesting to see what you learn. Right? Like, are you going to dive in there and understand how puts and call options and all those things work, or are you going to sit back and just look at the sort of slot machine lottery and just look at your balance and be like, hey, I put in 100, now it's 200. What do I do? And it's kind of fun, like when you look at it that way. But I like we've talked about it. If this helps new generation of people understand how the stock market works, irregardless of how much they lose and win, then overall I think it's great, right? Because like
Yeah.
tons of people who had no interest in the stock market now have an interest, even if it is a meme stock. They kind of understand how things work. They may be jaded and they may think this is the norm, which is totally is not. Um, I still think it's good and beneficial, and like kids learning about the stock market. How many times have you heard of adults trying to teach a kid about investing in the stock market and they ignore it? If this is
Mm.
what gets them in, then so be it. Like at
I
least they're
agree.
in.
That was kind of how I felt. Like before, it all seemed, I don't know. I just couldn't kind of connect it to the real world when, my folks were like, oh, you should join this stock market investing club and do all these other things. I was like, but why though?
Yeah,
But, but at some point I was like, oh wait, I have some money now and I need to figure out what to do with this.
yeah,
And I think putting it in a high yield savings account back before
yeah,
interest rates, kind of made a change, you're getting like 1%. So you can't even, like, you're not going to be able to make any money doing that. You're not going to be able to build wealth. So you have to learn some form of investing in order to make wealth. And
yeah. And
it's
a
just a
perfect
fact. So
example. I'll give a real life example. My wife and I talked about it. She put in, when she first started working, she put in just a little bit of money. She kept tucking it away into IRAs, and I didn't do that. Um, I didn't do that early on because I'm startup life. I'm hustling.
mhm.
I'm trying to quote unquote make it. And she was just nest egg tucking a little bit here and there. And she looked the other day and she's like, "Hey, look, this thing's almost $1 million, and you didn't do it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm an idiot, clearly." Um, but like it tells you, like like it's what do we do with that money? Like, yeah,
Compounding, the power of
yeah,
compounding, man. It is literally insane. And you just
yeah,
need to have a regular cadence of putting money away, and there's a tremendous impact. My example of that is like, when the kids were born, I started putting money into their 529. Even though they're only 4 now, like I got a good amount of money in there, man, and it's just based off of being consistent there. And you know, listen, I got 2 kids. They're 4. They're gonna have to go to into like a Mad Max cage type of thing to figure out who goes to college by the time they go, because it's gonna be too expensive anyway. But hey, hey man, at least one of them will be able to go. Or so.
I did the same, and I started doing research on um 529 plans and putting money away, and I stopped at the limit in which they can convert it into a Roth, which I think
Hmm.
is like 50,000.
Right.
Um because in the event, who knows if they want to go to school. I don't know. I'm not totally convinced that you need to go to college. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to like try to fund an entire thing. And at the same time, doing the math, I had my kids late. If I put it in a Roth, I can withdraw, and we still get the same tax benefit, and we can pay for their school through a Roth. So yeah, I kind of was like, I'm not doing a 520. And truthfully, 529 investment plans are pretty limited in
That's true.
options. So I feel like a Roth is a better option for someone who has kids late anyway, because really you can just pull out of that, and not have the tax benefit or tax consequences anyway. So anyway,
Yeah.
not
No.
financial advice, but that's
No,
just kind
not
of what I
financial.
learned.
Yeah, we should dive into that. Just
Uh,
what we've done, if that's interesting for folks. But you want to close out with just this Kling AI Sora news.
Yeah, let's do
Anything
it.
around that?
What do you know about it?
Yeah. So keep me honest, but I think a few days ago, this new model kind of took the tech and Gen AI world by storm, particularly within the context of AI video generation, and it was a tool that was developed by, and I'm going to totally mispronounce the name of this country, uh, Quaishou, QUAISHOU,
I think it's Chow. I'm not sure either.
Chow. Okay, well, don't if anybody's gonna come for me. It wasn't, I tried my best. Basically, it's a Chinese tech giant and rival to TikTok, and they developed this new model that is pretty incredible if you've seen some of the videos. And the model is called Kling, and basically it can generate videos up to 2 minutes long, 1080p resolution, 30 FPS, and substantially longer and higher quality than what like Pika and Runway ML and even like Sora can offer right now. So it's a pretty significant leap in terms of AI capabilities. And it can also use advanced 3D face and body reconstruction technology, which enables it to produce realistic movements from a single body image, understanding real world physics, and very accurately simulate physical interactions. In any event, people were pretty blown away by this. Right now, it's only available as a public demo in China through like a waitlist system. They say they're going to release globally soon, but you have to have like a Chinese phone number right now. But people were pretty blown away. So I think it's great. Personally, I think the more competition that there are of these different models and capabilities, it's ultimately better for the consumer, right? Because it kind of drives down that. What that will do is kind of drive down the price and increase access to more folks. It's really incredible. If you think of like the Will Smith eating pasta video and how insane that looked, and how you
Yeah,
basically almost create kind of short films entirely using prompts. It's pretty unbelievable, man.
yeah. No, it's absolutely unbelievable. It is really cool that other companies, other ventures are jumping into this, and other. I imagine, Asia is going to be huge into this with Japan and Korea being so huge in AI, and um, pop culture phenomenons over there tend to happen so quickly. Um, it'll be interesting. It's kind of fun to see them leading the way in something, because it feels, I could be wrong, but it just seems like the U.S. when it comes to these things is usually the leader in these sort of like tech spaces. But now you've got a Chinese leader in Jensen Huang at Nvidia now, um, leading the way. It's pretty cool. in terms
Yeah.
of diversification of leaders and thought leaders in this space.
I think it also shows, and we talk about this as well, like how quickly you can get left behind as well, right? Like
Yeah,
I think the competition is healthy to have the best models because, ostensibly in China, the government's going to control this, right? So if you think
yeah,
about, deep fakes and other things that they'll be
yeah,
able to leverage this technology for, and frankly, one thing we haven't talked about that I think is kind of interesting as we think through these ideas is like the more access. Okay, so you typically, let me take a step back of what I'm trying to say. If you think about like video content and quality, and you think about Hollywood, et cetera, it's very America centric. And that's because a lot of times that, like with the US, we just had the best capabilities in terms of studios and camera quality and everything else. That's why, when you go to Tubi and you watch some of these shows and movies from other countries, they look kind of jank because they just don't necessarily have the access to the technology. But now with these systems, if you can create Hollywood type of content with
right.
just these with these video generation tools and prompting, et cetera, lowers the barrier of creating like great content, and then it's just more about the ideas. And I think people in these other contexts have tremendous ideas as well. They just
Yeah,
didn't have access to the same technology, and so now it'd be really interesting to see how it kind of impact that has on kind of culture and video
yeah,
production, et cetera, where the US has had a stranglehold on that, but maybe not as much anymore. Like there's already a lot of pressures on Hollywood and kind of media anyway, based on these four factors. And now it's going to be the additional pressure of like everyone in the world can have access to these
yes.
tools. And what does that mean for the industry?
Yeah, so it levels the playing field. Like think about Squid Games taking off and like
Mm-hmm.
K-pop, BTS having a run, and these things that couldn't have happened, 10 years ago, um, because it really is all the things you mentioned. They've stepped up their game in terms of high quality music, high quality beats, and the video and obviously the storytelling. Like all these different cultures now can tell their stories through this technology. It's really
Totally.
it's gonna open the eyes for, and everything has been American centric. But I think that's about to change, right? I mean, you're talking stories in India and Africa and China and Mongolia and all of these things that have deep cultures and meanings that we frankly don't know about, because they haven't had the ability to communicate it out. We're about to unleash a lot of that, and me and you've talked about it. Like everybody has a story to tell, and you just may not have a way to tell it like the American culture has. We prioritize that, um, and I think this is going to be really cool and really interesting to hear these stories. Everybody's got one, um, and it's a matter of how do we push it out? How do we make it as clean and interesting and sort of globally available?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's not going to be perfect, but like it seems like we're on a path to getting there.
Yeah.
Like at least,
Yeah, I think that the accessibility that you talk about is really important with these tools and being able to tell different narratives that wouldn't exist
yeah,
otherwise is really interesting. If there's anything that could help, the studios still outcompete some of, the totally new bespoke content is just
right,
with the IP that they have.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that is really the golden goose. And to tie back to maybe something earlier we talked about, which is like, oh, Apple is sitting on all this cash. What would they do? Assuming you can get through, the regulators, I think that Disney would be a very interesting
yeah,
acquisition target. Not only for them but for a number of other companies. Frankly, based on the amount of IP that they have and these beloved, characters, and maybe that's the real, competitive moat. That's really the kind of the
yeah,
only competitive moat that exists within that context.
yeah. It's gonna be fun, and I look at like my childhood and the past in terms of like role models and ideal things and sort of like dream states. They're very Hollywood driven. Like I'm just going to keep it honest. Like Superman, Batman, all of superheroes and all the storytelling is done through Hollywood. And those are, as kids, those are what the things you dream of. And having those things expanded to other cultures and other things and other beliefs for the next generation. That's really cool. That's like a breath of fresh air to think that, hey, it's not going to be controlled by one city. I mean, literally, Hollywood is a city, and it's going to be different, right, in the future. And that's, for me, kind of cool, and has some promise there. Because minorities don't always have the greatest story telling capabilities, and if we're going to be able to unleash that, and have more people look up to different, you know, cultures and different styles and different things, I think it's going to be very helpful, and more things for people to understand and relate to. It's going to be great. I'm excited for that. Absolutely. Any parting thoughts? Oh, let's do the giveaway.
Yeah, let's do the giveaway. Yeah, and 1,000% agree with everything you said.
All right. First giveaway is this coach's jacket. I got it at Twitch. It's really cool. It's like a I don't know, polyester blend, I guess. But it's got Twitch on the back. It's got like a 3M. It's a size large. It's I mean, it has a Twitch label. Do you remember when these came out, Justin?
I feel like it had to be when we were both there. I think it was definitely when we were both there. We were both there at the same time. So if I had to guess, maybe like 2019, 2020.
So just, I mean, obviously, subscribe, leave a comment. This is size large. If you want to enter, all you got to do is subscribe and leave a comment. I'll send this one out to you. When do you want to decide? By our next, we'll decide on our next episode. I mean, right now we've got 9 subscribers, so you got a 10% chance of getting this thing.
I know,
and it's pretty cool. Like it's not something you could buy. It's a Twitch piece. We'll send it to you. Maybe we'll throw in some other stickers and things like that, and appreciate obviously our all 9 subscribers. That's pretty cool. I know it's this early start for our little journey here on YouTube, but want to give some stuff away.
Super.
Yeah, we'll keep doing that. So yeah,
of course.
We'll leave a comment on any video. Any video comment. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was wondering if we could growth hack it a little bit and have someone at least tag a friend in there as well.
Let's do it.
All right, so
the rules are to win this jacket. All right, let me start it over. To win this incredible Twitch coach's jacket, size large, leave a comment, tag a friend for an extra submission. Any comment, any one of our videos, we'll make this a little short, but go to any video, any short, leave a comment, leave a question, subscribe, and you'll get entered to win this. And we'll announce the winner next video. We'll announce the winner, and this is really cool. Like it's like 3M. It's a nice size large coach's jacket that you can't buy. So exclusive. Yeah. So, anyways, we'll end it there. Like, subscribe. You know what to do. Win Rush Hour Pod first giveaway, and
finally we did it after we did 4 episodes of not doing
4 episodes of hyping it up to the 3
That's
people.
How you got to do. You got to hype it up, right? You got to get people excited.
No, it's gonna be great, and I hope your wife enjoys it, Justin. No, I'm just kidding. Cool. And we'll catch you on the flip side, man. Next week.
Next time, man.
We'll talk soon.
Later. Talk soon.